Sit right here.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second session in this afternoon's Catapult Lockdown Virtual Salons. My name is Alim Hosein and I'm talking with you from Guyana. In this afternoon's session, I'll be in discussion with Denise Robinson, who lives and works in Jamaica. Before we begin, on behalf of everyone, I'd like to express huge thanks to the Catapult partners, including the American Friends of Jamaica, Kingston Creative, and Fresh Milk for making this series of salons possible. Remember that you are free to ask your questions in the comment section during the talk, and we'll get to them in the question and answer segment of the salon. It is now my honor and a distinct pleasure to welcome and introduce the person I'll be talking with in this afternoon session, Miss Denise Robinson. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you, Alim. It is an honor to be here. I am so blessed today.
Yes. Great. How are you?
Totally blessed.
Totally blessed.
Yeah, completely blessed, to be in this space where I get to share a little bit about myself, about my passion, and to, be reaching out to people across the Caribbean and, who knows where else. It is a blessing.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. Denise is a gifted, multi-talented person. She's a dancer, she's a choreographer, a multimedia artist. She's a coach, an art coach. She's an educator. She practices something called visual journaling, which we will get to later in the program. And she also has a master's in education. So a wide range of talent, related talents, a very gifted person. So Denise, the obvious question is, well, many obvious questions arise. One of which is, how do you feel having access to all of this talent? Do you feel especially blessed, I suppose?
I know I'm blessed.
Yeah.
But I'm humbled by the gifts that have come to me and the opportunities that I've had to share them. Because it doesn't make sense as I'm on my own doing my thing unless, there's somebody that I can, share this with and have them be the beneficiaries. That sounds like a lot when you read it like that, and I guess it's a lot.
Yeah.
But this, I guess, also goes along with having, again, using the word blessing, the blessing of having lived so many years. I give thanks every day for every single moment, for every breath. Because you realize that your breath, that one breath at a time, is connecting you to the soul. And what is my sole purpose? I have engaged with so many different art forms, ways of doing or expressing myself. And it wasn't where I had to think, what shall I do next? It was just simply what was inside of me, calling out to be acknowledged.
Yes, great. So how do you manage all of this? What calls out to you? What prompts you to get working? And does the urge to create take a particular form, whether it's in dance or in painting a vase or doing a painting or something like that?
It varies, because my journey with the arts, as I said, when you say it all in one lump sum, it sounds like everything is happening at the same time. But it's actually been an evolution, and the evolution, as I said, born out of something inside of me, something that was always calling to me. I can recall being a small child of maybe about 4 or 5, if that old, just having a fantasy of seeing myself on stage performing, acting. That was what I saw. that when I think on that, I'm a little bit curious because, you know, in the 50s, you know, internet, TV, you know, all these things, you know, were really not around, you know, and so therefore I think back and say, where did that come from, you know, and skip to now to present day, you know, I'm just really feeling that, well, you know, it is that each and every one of us has that creative spark in us, and I guess we are born into families or places or spaces that encourage, or in some instances discourage, you know. And happily, I was born into a family. I had very young parents. I grew up in the first few years with my grandmother, who was very gifted in terms of storytelling. She was a tremendous Nancy storyteller, and we would harass her every single night with the same stories over and over. So that space, I guess, at those early years, you know, storytelling was something that resonated with me. And as I grew up and the experiences came along, you know, I you know, at high school, you start a little dance club, you know, you're dancing for yourself and for others. And I just took that further. I always liked to draw. I always liked to daydream, which was not necessarily, that wasn't well received in a classroom where teachers didn't make fun, as we call it, to give you some licks to wake you up, you know.
Licks, yes. You
know, and of course, little did I know, in now I know those daydreams were my creative. It was my creative soul reaching out for expression, and so I have just kind of just moved from one space into the next, you know. At art school, when I was at Edna Manley College, and there was one particular lecturer who used to actually, you know, chide me for wanting to be dancing and doing painting at the same time, you know, like, no, you have to pick one. And that was always my question: why pick one when I'm being driven to experience it all? But I think your question was, how do I find time?
Yes, well, that is part of it too.
Yes.
But,
each expression has had its time and its place, and I have pushed my envelope, as it were, to make sure that I have this kind of expression.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's very interesting. You said that each expression has its time and its place.
Yes.
Right?
For me,
and you say you pushed
for me.
For you, yes. So we're talking about your experience.
Yes.
So that's why I want to explore this. So help us then to understand this. Is it that at some time an idea comes to you that you believe can be expressed through dance, or that sometimes you see something that you believe that you would want to transfer into a painting? So how do these expressions happen to you as an artist? And then link themselves to a particular way of being expressing?
Well, as I said, that, you know, I grew up with somebody who was creative, and so I was always at some level doing something creative. I went into art because that actually, in Jamaican school system as it existed, from my space, art was the best fit for me. And so I did visual arts, you know, at A level. My first engagement with tertiary level was in Kampala, Uganda, where I went to the Makerere University for a very short while, came back and continued to be schooled in arts at the Jamaica School of Art. And of course, I made the error of saying School of Dance, because while that was happening, I was still expressing or stepping out into the dance space. So
Okay.
both of these in the training years were working on parallel roads, like on parallel tracks. And so within the dance space, I was able to do some like costume designing. So I was able
Right.
to bring that visual
Bring
art
the art.
space and apply it into the dance. Because of the dance, that sort of love for the feeling of expression found its way into visual arts or added to the visual arts. So at any given time, these different ideas are always overlapping. They are separate, but they overlap. And I saw and I have seen where the overlapping of the two ideas only served to make each one even better.
Even
So
better.
that was my encouragement, and even the idea of drama. I did do a little bit of an elective moment at Edna Manley drama, and so I even brought that expression into the dance world. And my my love really, my first love in dance is always for the narratives, because it gives me a chance.
Narrative dance.
Yes, because it always gives
Okay.
me a chance to be more expressive in terms of the drama of the piece. Um, so as I said, there's this intermingling and overlapping, and beyond the training at Edna Manley, coming out of Edna, we were taught by some very passionate
Right.
artists. I had people teaching me like Valerie Bloomfield, Jean Pearson, Ralph Campbell, George Rodney. Those amazing people were part of my development at Edna. you know so that passion for sharing, and they shared in their way how they were, and
Right.
that passion kind of transcended outside of Edna into my teaching, because teaching was not like first choice. You go to the art school because you're going to be an artist, you're going to
You
paint.
want to be an artist, correct? Yes.
Yes. But even while I was in art school, as I said, I was kind of testing the waters and doing other things. Even though I specialize in painting, I would find myself meandering down to the ceramic department. You know,
Great.
so the idea that each of these things, for me, each of these things has to be by itself, and you need to focus on that. And that to me was always uncomfortable to manage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I recognized that within me, there was this fight, and the fight was listening to what the others were saying. You have to specialize. You have to find, the expertise, the mastery here.
Right.
While
Yeah.
my inside was saying, pull from all sides.
Yes.
It's all
Express
good.
the passion.
It's all
Yes.
good.
Express the passion. Yeah. Yeah. So the brief sojourn you had in Africa, was there anything that you learned through the education system there? Was there a different
Well,
kind of education there?
well,
How old were you at that time?
I was 17, and
Okay.
my family, my dad had a contract with the Macquarie University there,
Okay.
and he took us along, with the exception of my older sister, myself and my two younger brothers. And I was coming out of sixth form, and so in a space where, yes, I definitely wanted to do art, and so I registered with the fine art department there. And again, I was only there for about 2 or 3 months, but it was
Okay.
an eye opener for me, because I was coming out of high school art, and then going in with the big leagues, and then I'm like seeing all these gifted and talented people around me. I must say it was very humbling, And actually it kind of brought up my feeling of insecurity and not good enough, so,
Okay.
so to ask what experience, it wasn't so much about the art that I saw around me and how these guys were like excelling in all their areas, just made me feel like, oh, okay, so this is what it's about.
Great.
So it was enlightening.
Good. So you mentioned earlier that in your time growing up, there was no internet and television was around and so on. And so you had to release this energy within you in your own ways and so on. Do you think that the internet and electronic media and so on today, you think it's blocking young people from expressing their creativity?
That's I think that answer is one of these yes and no scenarios,
Mhm.
um yes, I think because to create, you have to use head, you have to use heart, and you have to use hands,
Mhm.
and so when it comes down just to fingertips,
Mhm.
I'm like, not sure where we're going with that in terms of the fullness of the full expression, and of course because I'm from dance background, the whole body has to get involved,
Yes. Yeah.
and the voice, of course. But on the other hand, I know when I was in the classroom and teaching, it was the tool, the internet was a good tool to have, because I was able to share a wider perspective of what art can be or could be,
Mhm.
or how it
Mhm.
can be as creatives. And so for classroom purposes, with managing that, I found that I was able to engage more students based on, showing them that breadth
Right.
of how they could express. So it wasn't just this one teacher and her technique, or okay, we'll go to the National Gallery this weekend, or there are other gallery spaces online,
Mhm.
so it's this kind of balancing act,
It's both.
really, like everything,
Yeah.
because that's life, eh? That is life. We're always in this weighing,
Mhm.
balancing things. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's my.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Now, another aspect of your growing up, um, you were growing up at a very interesting time around the world, civil
Mm,
rights time,
yeah.
Black Power movement,
Mm,
women's lib, and of course, Jamaica has a strong cultural identification
mm, mm.
in the Caribbean and internationally.
Yes, yes.
And you have those great singers, Bob Marley being the most famous, but Peter Tosh
Gosh.
and
Mm.
Toots Maytals, who recently died.
Yeah,
One of
yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite,
Oh yeah,
and
mine
through
too.
those.
Yay.
Great, great. Thank you.
love, love
Yes,
toots.
yes. So, did all of that flow into your work? Did all of that have an
Oh,
influence on you growing up?
most certainly. I actually we lived in Massachusetts during the '60s for like about 3 years, and we actually arrived in Massachusetts after um, John Kennedy was assassinated. Martin Luther
Okay.
King was, very much in the forefront.
Mhm.
Bobby Kennedy, John Kennedy's brother,
Bobby Kennedy.
also was assassinated while we were there. So there was a lot going on in that space for this 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old to process. Going into United States in the '60s, being one of five Black children in a school. I had certain experiences of prejudice. I mean, like kids would run up to me and say, "Uh-oh, God burnt another one." You know,
Oh.
yeah. Really cruel things. So when I came back to Jamaica, I by then, now natural here is very natural these days, but at that time, to cut your long hair that was cream, that have it as an afro. I came back into Jamaica with my afro, and I was militant. I didn't take anything from anybody, because I had certain experiences and I was mad. But continuing along that line, eventually going back to Africa, because there was a song, going back to Africa, because I'm black, going back to Africa. And when I arrived in Uganda, and persons there would look at me and say, well, you're not actually black, you're not really black, so there was another marginalizing thing.
So there was
going
another
on.
Right. Yes.
Yes, and then coming back and then joining the School of Art at North Street, where in that space we had all these creatives, and everybody, I think at the time, were trying to find their identity. Some were very adamant. The guys who were Rastafarian were very strong and very powerful. Know who they were, And then, of course, if you go into the art school, there's a kind of what they call rootsiness about you, So you wear your long dress and your head tie, and so all of these experiences were brewing and mixing and mingling. And yes, it came out in the work that I would produce in those days. Beyond that, going into professional life, one of the areas that I worked with for quite a while was creating art for the resort areas, and for me it was very important to have a different kind of product. I was working strictly to product, looking at the market. This is what I want to see in the marketplace, and so I would create these brilliantly colored images on ordinary plates and jars and that kind of thing, making the art accessible, making it a little bit different to what tourists visitors were accustomed to, in terms of color, in terms of the information that was embedded. And so what I have to say is that along the way, with all those different experiences, there's always an assimilation and a response, and then a breakdown, and something else emerges. And then, so it's all about the growth, So yes, those times were very influential in how I would express my art. And so were so many other things, like a few of us students had the privilege to go and sit in George Rodney's studio on a Saturday, and everybody was painting like George Rodney. We just love this art, and so all of us had some kind of Rodney-esque kind of
artwork.
Some flavor, But again, you go through that. You go through that because it's your experience that you're trying to assimilate, and you're trying to find that voice. So I hope I kind of covered what you were asking.
Good, great. So that makes a good bridge into your work that we can start looking at, and then we'll talk about other kinds of things like the therapy and so on that you did, which will come out also in the artwork. So we will start with the first one, which is the 3 female faces. We'll start with the first one, number 1 that you had in the list there.
Okay, that is one of my pieces. That's called Sun and Moon, and that was
Sun and Moon.
Yes, it's called Sun and Moon. And that's one of the pieces, the ideas, as well as this, that I used to create for the resort spaces.
So and these are some of the stuff that you used.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. That's the Buddha's face. Yeah.
Right.
And then of course these urns were part of a whole thrust that I had with interior decor, doing designing surfaces. For different spaces, offices and homes and that kind of thing. And again, when you look at this particular urn, just to be clear, the urn is reappropriated. It's another artist created that
Somebody
work.
else made that.
Yes.
Okay.
And part of my expression is about looking at where can I put the art next, or how can I get art to be processed through what I'm seeing around me. And so a lot of my offerings would engage with everyday objects, things that were just embedded in your living space as a norm. I used to look at like the Haitian artworks.
Right. Yes.
You see how it's like the art is like embedded. It's like into everything. It's not like separated, put on a canvas, put on a wall, or and well, of course nothing wrong with that. That's beautiful, and I do that as well. But what I really love about some of these cultures, that the art that seems to ooze out of the pores of the people, and it's not like something that is a hard sell. It just is.
Right.
How they are. I guess you find that in a lot of cultures that are close to the spirituality, close to the earth. Aboriginal cultures as well would express like that. So those are some of the things that would motivate that kind of expression. I often say to people, I like to consider where else can I put some paint. I put on my front door. I put it on some pots and pans. I put it on a piece of tin. I put it on a dried leaf. I put it on a stick. Okay, if you stand still, maybe I could paint you too.
Yeah. So the art is all around.
Yes, it's all around, and it's like I'm always thinking art. I'm always seeing that's for me. It's like it's really a nice space, but sometimes I catch myself saying and you need to put this down for a little bit, because I go on a vacation, and my first choice would be, let me run to the souvenir store and see what's going on in there. What are people doing? What are they using? How the finish, the colors. So it's like, okay, take a break, take a breath, but that's not really.
So do you stop or sometimes say, well, I should do a painting, or I should do a piece about women, or I should do a piece about Black Lives Matter, or I should do a piece about being Caribbean?
Yeah, on occasion, yes. I mean, that last piece with the urn, with the women that you saw, it was really about an homage to female power. I had quite a few of the figures very sensuous and in diaphanous kind of thing, but then again I had some of them in robes, representing certain power, and the two sides have large faces that I have like scarification, some reflective of those cultures that you carry your marks of your family or your tribe or your community,
your people.
So that piece, definitely was about that honoring the female in our culture and seeing her as beauty, as mystical, as soft, but then seeing her as force, as power, dominating a space.
Yes, and you use very bright colors.
Well, for I think yes. Generally, let me say yes.
Yes.
But that bright use of bright colors, the thinking behind the bright colors, specifically with what I call the Setu products. Setu was the pseudonym I used for quite a while. It's a word that means artist, and that was very deliberate. Those bright colors were deliberately chosen, because what I wanted to reflect again was our Jamaican buoyancy, the sunshine, the colors. Everywhere you look, you're saturated by color, and that invasion of the senses through color visual is something that I like playing with.
Great. I'd like to look at the second piece because it has an image of a lotus, which has quite a lot of significance in East Indian culture.
Yes.
So I would, yes, I would want to,
Yes.
and you have those dark
Yes.
figures on the left at the top,
Right. Yes.
and the big
Yes.
face on the right,
Right.
and
Yes.
the
Yes.
figure in the middle. So,
Yes.
first of all, I'm interested in the lotus. In East Indian culture, the lotus represents purity and a divinity, a state of grace coming up from the mud in the trenches.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so tell us about that.
Yes, and yes, that is so in terms of the symbolism of the lotus, but
Yeah.
the part that really the symbolic nature of the lotus for me that really grabs me is that this beautiful flower blooms in murky water, and at
Right.
night it closes and it submerges and then it re-emerges, and I just think that that is a brilliant metaphor for how life is, and how we can be in spite of challenges that will come up. Stuff is always going to happen, things are always going to happen to you, about you, at you, whatever. But you get a new day, you get an opportunity to rise again, and despite the murkiness, you're able to bloom and still be brilliant. And so the lotus for me is like it's like I kind of claim it as mine. Now, I know you said it's from an Indian tradition, but
Yeah.
Jamaica, out of any one people,
Yeah.
that's us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Well, these different things would have,
yes,
they would have different meanings in different cultures and
cultures.
even
Yes,
meanings to a different person. So
yes,
you're quite right
absolutely.
to, yes,
Yes,
exactly. And that
that
shows how similar we all are underneath the differences.
there we
Great.
go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
the lotus is there, the female form again, rising up, lifting up, looking up. Yeah, and she has this golden glow around her,
Mhm.
and then the images to the back, just the
Yes.
shadow images,
Mhm.
they just represent the fact that yes, you're rising up, but we still have things going on in the background a lot of the time, a lot of
Yeah.
things that we choose to look at in different times, or we choose not to look at, so I
Right.
want to keep that presence there. And then, of
Yeah.
course, mask on the other side now it is just representative of the roots, my roots,
Mhm.
this incarnation as an African in the Western world.
Yeah. So what media do you prefer to work in, or you work mostly in?
Again, I've been, as I said, going through these layers, peeling away at the layers. It's like an onion, peeling away the layers because there's a giant pearl in the middle of there somewhere.
Mhm.
And so when you say like, what media do you prefer? At one
Yeah.
point, you couldn't drag me away from a dance studio. At one
Okay.
point, and I dedicated a lot of time to dance, and I enjoyed those days very much.
Mhm.
Very challenging art form, I must tell you. But we're hitting that stage is a joy. It's just a celebration of self
Yeah.
and others and connecting with people across those footlights. It's just beautiful. So at one point, I would say the dance. At this point in time, I have been
Yeah.
through. I am in the blooming stage again, coming up out of the
Blooming.
murk.
Great.
Yeah, coming out.
Like the
Yes,
lotus.
becoming
Yes.
yes, becoming
Yeah.
brand new again. And with all the painting and the teaching, because I think all together I taught for about 30 years in
Okay.
classroom, part time, and then more recently full time. I only left teaching classroom in 2016.
Oh.
Um, so the teaching at one point was a passion as well. It still is, but I teach in a different way. I facilitate.
Great. Right.
Because I
Yeah.
can't teach you anything. I really cannot teach you anything. I can be a space, a compassionate space, and I can provide you with certain tools and ideas and directions and so on, and allow you to then become more of who you are. So again, back to your question, which is the favorite. I really love sitting and spending time in my journal.
Good.
Journal
Great.
space is a space that is sacred for me. It's a space of exploration, experimentation, playing around, doing nonsense, and then doing some things that I say, "Whoa, did you do that,
Great.
Denise? Good stuff,"
Yeah.
It's a space that reveals a lot to me about myself, and it's a space of yeah, say it's a sacred space. It's a sacred
Sacred
space.
space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a good. Go ahead.
Yeah, which I encourage everybody that knows me, that knows about my art. I always try to encourage them to develop this sacred space of creating, and it can take so many different forms.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a good point to bring in the other aspect of your work. That is in the coaching and the journaling and the finding of creativity and so on, which is something that you were interested all along, but you, I think, became much more actively engaged in that fairly recently. So,
Yes. Yeah.
so tell us about how you made that transition out to working in art as therapy and coaching and so on.
Yes. Well, first I must say I am not a therapist.
Correct.
I'm just someone who has a lot of experience in the creation of art, in teaching and mentoring people from kindergarten to age 90. I think was 90 something was the oldest person that I have engaged with in teaching or in sharing my art ideas with, and so the the transition officially came because even while I was teaching, I would do workshops in the summer, and like on a Saturday afternoon and so on. Emphasis was always on the creative process, and the creative process was a hybrid. It's a hybrid of movement and art making and free writing and meditation, and depending on who I'm teaching or I'm facilitating, that could have all of the above or just a few, or one or two areas. But art for me is a space that you want to inhabit. It's like you inhabit it so that you can have a significant experience of your present moment. It's a moment to moment thing. So like I said earlier on, it's so hard for me sometimes to not be thinking, how can I make this into this, or how can this become that?
Right.
Which actually sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming.
Difficult. Yes.
The ideas bursting all the time. So in 2005, my son had a major stroke. He has sickle cell anemia, and a particular condition occurred, and he had multiple strokes actually. So he was in the ICU for a long time, and in those moments that he was there, while one side of me was very concerned and in tears, broken up, whatever, there was a part of me that was still saying, use your creativity. I would come home from the hospital and I would practice journaling, visual journaling. So I would draw what I wanted to see. I would draw how I wanted the result that I wanted. And so the journal space became in those days a very sacred space, a very a space that when I went there, I could find healing. I could feel relaxed. It would bring me down to a.
So let us share. Yes, let us share one example. You have one of the journals to share with the audience.
Oh, so the image is there. Yeah.
Yes. So it's number 6. The journal is here at number 6, and this is one of the journals that you actually did.
I tried to put a couple pictures together, so
Right. Yes.
Again, here now, it's all about process. In the journal, we art. A lot of the times we create art because we're thinking we want to sell it. We want to see who's gonna look at it. We're gonna put it up in a museum or a gallery. This is just about the process. The process, what's happening inside. What's
inside
happening
of you. Yeah.
while I'm making this, because the product very often I find is just like an echo. So that's a mixed media piece, the collage and the writings underneath it there. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So my thoughts are, once the work is done, the work that you see before you, the image that's there is the echo, because in the core was the real healing, the real development of self, the unfolding of self, the peeling away of layers. And it has the power. It does. This is just me talking, guys, but it has that power to bring you into calm, into making you become much more conscious of just your thoughts and what occurs through that thinking process. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so great. So that's a nice place for people to play. And again, you're seeing a finished image here, a portrait, but that's actually not really typical, but it's just part of, my series, as it were.
Yeah. So
that's why I included it. But journaling is, for me, something that anybody can get into. It's not, because creativity is not something that, you're going to say, well, I'm not an artist, I can't draw, so therefore I can't be creative. Everybody's creative. All day long, we're being creative, If I have to get up and have to figure out how to help my son to get through the morning and get through it in a way that is positive, that actually is an act of creativity. Or we've been eating rice for 5 days now. How can I make rice exciting?
Change up the
but in all seriousness, the creativity is there, and for many people, it's an untapped resource.
Good, and that's a very interesting point too, because you have been holding workshops in which you work with people. So we can look at another video in which you were doing some dance.
Yeah, let me set it up. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Alim, I cut you a while ago. Tell me what else you wanted to ask.
Yeah. So we will talk about these sessions that you have with people, working with them to recognize and tap into and release their creativity.
Yeah.
And so we'll see a small part of a video with a dance. You were doing dance in one of your workshops.
Yes.
Yeah. So we can talk about how you got into this and why you started working with people.
Yes.
In this way.
Okay. So this was a workshop with a group of teachers, visual art teachers.
Yes.
And us teachers, when we're giving so much, we're not recognizing sometimes when the cup is empty. So we can't keep going from the empty cup. So this workshop,
Right.
the JCDC had put it on, and I had a segment to do with a group of teachers, and then the video just showed them warming up and feeling a little self-conscious what they did it, because that's
So
not
this
that's not
is
what visual art teachers not accustomed to going and moving, So this
so
was
this
their
is
warm.
image. This is image number 4. The
Okay.
dance video, image number 4. So
Okay.
yes, Philip can pull that up. Yeah. So this is warming up. That even
Yes.
the body is involved in the creation of art. It's not just
Right.
coming with a blank canvas and
Yes.
or a
Yes.
piece
Oh,
of
yeah.
paper.
That
Yeah.
yeah, that would be too hard, that
Yeah.
I couldn't manage manage that. I've, so it's just simple little movements.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like brown girl in the ring, So we have
Right.
a circle, and so each person comes in and do their thing. They try. The idea is, okay, how can I outdo the other one? So it's kind of encouraging you to compete, friendly competition, to
Yes.
to do whatever movement strikes you, and it doesn't have to be any movement that's structured. Just move the body, feel the music, and just participate.
Feel the music.
Yes.
Get into the rhythm. Yeah.
Get
Okay.
into it. Yes.
Great. Yeah.
So the
So,
workshops would start with a little talk, just to get to know people where they are and they share with one another. Then we jump right into the movement, because that's what I find, that once you say to somebody, move your body, I'm here to paint, I'm here to draw,
Okay. Right.
So it's a way just to kind of just bring everybody to the same level, and
Right.
well, you're seeing the end of the work, the session, because in between that was the painting and the game playing and so on, and so now they're here lying down, in a visualization, just relaxing. Oh no, that happens. No, that happens more after the dance. Sorry. So they're lying down. They're doing the visualization. They're getting calm. They're getting, oriented around the creative process, using the mind, bringing in images through relaxation. So you're kind of allowing, what they're doing, they're allowing that authentic voice to start
to surface.
Find its way through. Yes.
Great.
So
and I'm sure the audience will have some questions. This is a very interesting discussion that we can continue, but we'll need to bring our audience in.
Okay.
And so we are ready to take the questions. Could we have the first question, please? Okay, and this is from Author Girl 144.
So
how has the support for your practice been from your community? The support for your practice, how has it been from your community? And has your focus on accessibility in your work opened up people to more possibilities? For example,
of placing art in public spaces.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has your work encouraged people to open up art more to the public?
Well, let me do this. The support for the practice is very much there. It is very niche right now. Okay. It's a niche kind of way of for some people, because to move from your canvas and then you go to a book, it's big heavy book you have, it's something that people, I think, at this point in Jamaica now, and I think in the world, especially with COVID and so on, I think that they are receptive to that idea of using the creative voice or creative force to as a tool for self-care. very much in the way that,
Self-care.
you like yoga practice, or I don't know if you see that going to the gym is vital. But what I'm saying is that this space of creativity has even more power. And yes, I do have a little niche that worked with me so far. My other works, like painting on surfaces and so on, that is ongoing. I work along with my daughter now. We do collaboratives, so it's not just me alone. Um, and so the other question about public spaces,
Yeah.
I have not really given that any thought. And so, yes, now that the question has arisen,
Yeah.
food for thought. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Could we have another question? Okay, this is from Annalie Davis. Can you talk about your experience in the art education master's program? Was there any tension between the US pedagogical context and the Jamaican educational environment you worked in as a teacher?
Okay. I taught art at an international school for 16 years, and in art education for me began way back at Jamaica School of Art days with a beautiful woman by the name of Alison Stimson, who really taught us that passion for sharing ideas with others and encouraging others. In the setting that I found myself over a sustained period of time is that I was actually working with the American system, and I was part of the IB program, International Baccalaureate, and that IB umbrella. When I started working in that under that heading in 2006, that to me opened up a whole new way of thinking around art, around how I shared with students wanting to learn or wanting to go through the visual arts, because IB stressed not just technique, but it stressed thinking about art. It stressed living art, connecting with your culture, connecting with your family and community. I used to teach a particular lesson under a banner of big ideas, and within the big ideas, say we'd identify maybe, okay, community is a big idea, and students would be able to feed into that from a cultural perspective, from a personal space, from a geographical perspective, from a historic perspective, all under the banner of art. So it encourage their practice in terms of research, and it also encouraged them to think broader about how they address issues using visual arts. And so I don't find that there was tension, because in my space, whether it's a Jamaican space or an international space, my primary purpose is for nurturing minds around potential and the possibilities that creativity, and specifically in visual arts, would offer anybody.
Okay, great. Okay, we have time. We can take another question.
Thanks for the question,
Okay.
Annalie.
Yes. Okay. Okay. This is from Rachel Thomas Coaching. Hi, Denise. It's been great to hear you speak about all of your experiences. I'm curious to know about your views on working as an artist since the development of COVID. Have you faced any new challenge?
Any and all and every. Um, COVID, as I say, COVID put me on the back foot. It really, I saw this year going a completely different way. I saw this year, it started out wonderful. I had a beautiful workshop, planning another one. I was teaching private, sessions, one-on-one. And in one fell swoop, that went boom, completely away. So I think, like everybody else, for a while I was stuck. I was according to Jamaica, stunted. You
Stunted.
know, I was
Yeah.
stunted.
Yes.
I really floundered with, I was doing something, now I'm not doing it, but I need to do something because, and so that monkey mind, the head, take over and was driving me. Eventually, I calmed down and I reached out to a couple of other persons who are not artists but were business people, who are persons who deal with finances and that kind of thing in terms of what's the way forward, And so I was consulting with people, informally. Um, but then it struck me, didn't you say you are a creative? And what do creatives do? Creatives make lemonade out of lemons.
Yes.
Creatives see the beauty in the most not so beautiful things for most people. Like the Japanese have this concept called wabi sabi. That imperfect,
Yes.
the appreciation of beauty in the imperfect. And we were
Imperfect.
certainly in a very imperfect time, and it was calling us to be unprecedented. It is calling us to be unprecedented in our responses. And so I have actually spent more time going back to school, learning about online, platforms, how to use media like this, and so on. And so I am still in that stage of like doing this. It's a little bit wobbly, but I'm a little bit more focused around it, and working towards doing online workshops. It's not the same. It's not the same as jump up and down and dance in a space, or
Right. You would
the
miss all
social
of that.
interaction. But
Yes.
guess what? It's a bigger reach. So there
Correct.
are
Yeah.
opportunities in that larger reach. I mean, look at us here, Alim. You're in Guyana, I'm
Yeah.
in Jamaica, and
Yeah.
all our viewers and our friends are elsewhere around the world. So,
Yes.
so my challenge that I have given myself, or my mission I've given myself, is to find what is good in this. I know that a lot of people are under severe pressure, but I can't. I acknowledge that, and I'm compassionate to that. And my voice in my head says, "What is your responsibility? How are you going to respond? Because you have reacted, and the reaction has had its ripple effects. Okay, time for
Yeah.
response. So getting online, sharing online is the option we have now."
Great. Denise, thank you very much. Our time has gone so very quickly.
What? Oh
Um,
my goodness!
yes, yes, it has gone. Imagine that.
I can't
I
believe.
think, I think, yeah, I think you're amazing in your creativity and your passion for your work. And
Thank
I know
you.
that COVID for all of us is a learning, and good things can come out of it if we
Yes.
take your perspective, and
Hmm.
we can get through and learn new skills. And there are
Hmm.
some things that we will have to lose, but there are new things that we will learn.
The lotus
I
flower. The
correct.
lotus.
I'm in, yes, I'm very much in awe of all the things that you have been doing, and I wish you the best in your work.
Thank you.
And I know that your creativity will go on and develop.
Thank
So
you.
we have come to the end of our discussion. And in closing today's salon, I'd like to express on behalf of everyone huge thanks to the Catapult partners, including the American Friends of Jamaica, Kingston Creative, and Fresh Milk for making this wonderful, excellent, and powerful series uh,
Absolutely.
possible. And
Powerful.
please remember that the series continues. The next Catapult Lockdown Virtual Salon will be at 1 p.m. AST on Tuesday, October 27th, 2020, when Kendall Hippolyte of St. Lucia will be in dialogue with Rochelle Ward of St. Martin and Evan A. Walters of Jamaica. So that should be two powerful conversations coming up for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody, remember to subscribe to the Fresh Milk YouTube channel where you can watch this program and all the previous LVS sessions, and you can be notified of the upcoming live streams. So thank you, Denise. Thank you, audience.
Bless you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
technician,
Alex.
Philip, and everyone else. You're welcome. It's been great talking to you, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Goodbye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you.